this afternoon have a very intimate event among those close and dear to us, but at the same time take the opportunity to showcase a wonderful jurisdiction, Iraq ICC. So while chatting to some colleagues of the industry, they asked me the question, why Iraq ICC, and how come a Mauritian company based in, licensed in Mauritius, why go about and why promote a jurisdiction abroad? And why go through so much time, effort to actually showcase Iraq ICC? So to me, the answer to that is quite simple. The Mauritius financial services industry is going more global, because we have seen in the past the risks of being client-centric or jurisdiction-centric, in the sense that we used to rely a lot on the treaty and the double tax treaty between Mauritius and India. And when this came to an end, and even though we knew it would come to an end, it caused a lot of turmoil in the industry. And as we go along, the Mauritius International Financial Center has decided to be more a jurisdiction of substance, focusing on the larger corporates that need structures, that need to have offices, that need to have legal services. Well, what this shows is that today, Mauritius has those capabilities. It has a very strong banking platform, it has a very strong legal network, and it has a lot of skills of young people that are specialized in the financial services industry. But is it enough for our industry to just look at what we do here locally and just promote our local licenses? We would tend to think no. We tend to think that at the end of the day, companies in the financial services industry should have the option of offering more than just one jurisdiction. We cannot be jurisdiction-centric. Jurisdictions can face pressures from the European Union, from the OECD, and different jurisdictions will respond differently to those pressures, to those different pressures. So you need to mitigate your risks as financial services providers, and you also need to cater for certain needs. So while substance is something that is needed, it is not needed for all companies. We do have a number of international businessmen that are in import and export, that would import tires from China and sell to 3 or 4 countries in Africa. And they don't really have a place of business. They don't have a place of residence today. What they need is a vehicle that allows them to do cross-border transactions. Now, it is quite funny that we speak of substance, or even the European Union or the OECD speaks of substance, when the more we modernize and the greater progress we make, when we speak about digitization, or we speak about sending information on cloud, we speak about internet banking, we speak about having your apps on your mobile phone that you can do all your transactions, request your SWIFT, make your payments. Even in Mauritius today, we have services like Juice, where we have instant transfers. So you're actually bringing people's offices in their pockets, literally, and you can do a lot of business just on your phone. But at the same time, we are asking people to have an office, hire people, and do all those things. So it's quite a contradiction in terms. So I believe that as Mauritian companies, and as a Mauritius International Financial Center, and as a services industry here, as a whole, we should now use our skills and see how our wonderful skills in fund administration, in compliance, in legal, etc., can now be put to use to people that might not need Mauritius as a jurisdiction, and that might have the opportunity to use other places. Now, why Iraq ICC? Is it because it's a very upcoming jurisdiction? It is one where the ruler is extremely committed to having a jurisdiction of sound repute, but at the same time will defend those using his jurisdiction as long as they're doing it properly and in a way that satisfies their compliance standards. And as Mauritius, we cannot no longer offer certain types of vehicles. Jurisdictions such as Iraq ICC will become complementary to our offer. So this is why I seize the opportunity of this afternoon to invite people to, number one, consider Iraq ICC, discover what it is about, and they can do two things as management companies here or as other types of service providers. Is we are already, as Capital Horizons, registered agent with Iraq ICC. So either they can decide to incorporate using us, and we will not contact the government, we just rely on the management company's relation, or on the other hand, if they want to become agents in their own rights, where we have the team of Iraq ICC that are here, and that will most happily guide them in terms of what is the procedure to open an office and to become Iraq ICC agent. So without boring you too much, I will hand over the microphone to Dr. Samir Ansari. I believe he has some words from His Highness Sheikh Ahmed, and I will let him do justice to the jurisdiction and to a regulatory body that he is. Thank you, Dr. Samir.
Sean, thank you. That was absolutely excellent, great introduction, and I really could not agree more with your words. And by the way, I wish I could do this in French because I know it will be easier for most of you, but my French stops at not niveau, so that I'm sure will not work. So let me first start by thanking Sean and the Capital Horizon team, who have been great friends and great partners in the short time that we have been working together. I'm confident it will be for a long time, because when it comes to business, it's like marriage, chemistry really counts. And in this case, we've got great chemistry. We see things the same way. We see the challenges the same way, and also the opportunities the same way. So I'm confident that we will be working together a long time. The point that Sean made about if you'd like to come directly to us and register with us, of course that's available, but my recommendation would be it's more efficient to work through somebody who's already registered with Iraq ICC, who's already got a presence in the UAE. So I encourage you to do it through Capital Horizons first, and maybe in the long term you decide you want to do it directly. But let me start also by giving you a message. My chairman was supposed to be with me today and for this trip. And this is literally our third time in less than a year. And for a happy reason he's not here, because his wife is expecting, so they had a false alarm 2 days ago. And I think they're on their way back to hospital now. So it's any minute, and he is such a gentleman. He said, I'm not traveling, I need to be with my wife. So I fully appreciate that. But he wanted me to say that the UAE-Mauritius relationship is an important one, and it is a growing one. And you know, I will share with you some statistics that shows how important the relationship is, and how we truly feel that it is a win-win relationship. It's not one where one party wins, one party loses, or we take business away from Mauritius. I think it's a win-win, and I'll talk about a number of things that demonstrate why it's a win-win. But Sheikh Ahmed would have loved to be with us. Actually, his honeymoon was in Mauritius, so he loves to come to Mauritius. But I'm sure he will be with us next time. Now, before I go through the presentation, we wanted to play a video, 3-minute video on Ras Al Khaimah. A lot of people may have never been to the UAE, or if they've been to the UAE, perhaps they've been through Dubai. I think a lot have not been to Iraq. those who have, some of the smiling faces I see in front of me, love it. So we encourage you to come, and we'll show you a video that hopefully will encourage you to come and visit RAK. So let's start with that. But in addition to this, there's a thriving industrial manufacturing trading zone. So it's not just about tourism. However, when it comes to tourism, it is the fastest growing emirate, so it's growing at a faster rate than Dubai. In fact, next week, RAK is hosting the Arabian Hotel Investment Conference, which Dubai hosted for the last 20 years. And from last year, Ras Al Khaimah started hosting it. So it shows the interest in tourism and the growth and the opportunities in tourism as well as business in general in Ras Al Khaimah. Can you put it on full screen instead of And it's really meant to introduce the jurisdiction to you, to give you a better awareness of what RAK ICC is, what we do, and why we think there is a great opportunity to do a lot more as a registry, but also as a partner of Mauritius. And I always start this presentation by talking about the UAE, because in the many countries that I've been to, it's interesting how little people know about the UAE. Everybody's heard of Dubai somehow. Everybody's been through Dubai, either transited in the airport or visited. But the UAE itself, and certainly Ras Al Khaimah, not many people have heard of it. That's why we like to play the video, because, thank you, that's perfect. Because at least, when you see something, you can understand it better. So, and the reason I start with this slide is because there's a lot that the UAE should be known for. It is one of the strongest jurisdictions in the world, and when you think offshore, you often think of small islands in the Caribbean. Now, when you think offshore, and you can get an offshore registry that is in one of the strongest economies in the world, then surely there's something worth looking into a little bit more. We are blessed to be in the middle of the world, on the same time zone as Mauritius. So it's fantastic to be working with Asia in the morning, the rest of the region and Europe in the afternoon, and the Americas by late afternoon and early evening. I always pick on BVI, by the way. So when I'm in China, I tell people, how can you even have a company in BVI? You can't get to BVI, let alone speak with somebody on the phone, because you're always opposite time zone. Whereas you get on a plane and you're in Dubai in 6 hours. Dubai is the most networked, internationally networked city in the world. More direct flights than any other city in the world. And we are 45 minutes drive from Dubai Airport. So we have all the advantages that Dubai and the UAE affords us. Some great statistics here, and I know I pick on Mauritius here, it's not really to pick on Mauritius, it's to show the comparison. So we are the 27th in the global competitiveness ranking. Malta's 36, Cyprus 44, Mauritius 49, Panama, Seychelles, etc. But the point of this is to highlight the strength of the jurisdiction. Of course, every jurisdiction has advantages and disadvantages. But from a credit rating perspective, if you look at the S&P and Moody's ratings, we are the same as Hong Kong, France, UK, South Korea, or UK. GDP per capita, same as Germany. The 8th largest oil producer in the world. Second in the world in the government trust index. All the things that you and your clients want to know when you go to a jurisdiction. You want to be in a strong jurisdiction. It's, the UAE is 50 years old next year. A mature banking system, legal system, etc. So I always like to start with this because before talking about RAC ICC as a registry, you need to be comfortable with the jurisdiction itself. And of course, somebody's going to put their hand up and say, yeah, but you're a blacklisted jurisdiction. True, and that happened a few weeks ago, but it really doesn't matter. And I'm saying it doesn't matter for a number of reasons. Here is a list of all things that the UAE has been doing to stay off the blacklist and to be compliant. And whether signing, you can read it. So the FATF task force, FATCA, CRS, you name it, PEPS, we've signed up to all of that. We're on this blacklist for a very short period of time, frankly because the whole issue was not managed very well. And we're on it because of actually substance. And we're sure that we will be off it very quickly because I know the substance regulations have been circulated to us and others in the last 6 months, and I know it's ready. So that sometimes it takes a little bit of time to get things approved when you have to go through local emirates, the federal government, etc., etc. So I put that there really just to put your mind at ease that you're not dealing with a jurisdiction that's going to be on a blacklist and therefore have issues in the long term. We are confident that this is a short-term issue and will be resolved very soon. I hear through the grapevine that Bermuda actually is going to be removed very quickly. So they've obviously stepped up and are doing what's required to get it off it, and we hope UAE will be the same. Back to the Mauritius and the UAE relationship. So as you know, both countries have had several agreements signed over the years, and I was surprised to read this number when I first saw it, that there's been more than $10 billion of investment flows between Mauritius and the UAE structured through the global business sector. That's a big number, and for a small jurisdiction, that's obviously a lot of business that was effective. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. The structures make sense. Otherwise, people don't do them. And most of the investments I know were in real estate, manufacturing, hospitality, and so on. But we really believe that the UAE can be the gateway to the Arab world, GCC, for African countries, and people coming through Mauritius, and vice versa. So for us, we will encourage companies to come through Mauritius, to go into Africa. And that's why when we have the discussions with Shah and the team, we're always looking at ways where we can promote the Mauritius side of the business, the UAE, RAC ICC side of the business. It makes sense. At the end of the day, you want to structure something that makes sense for your clients. And this is why I always say I don't see it as a win-lose relationship. It can be a win-win relationship. So For those who don't know the UAE, that's literally our map, and Ras Al Khaimah is the northern part or north from Dubai. Ras Al Khaimah, by the way, means tip of the tent. The UAE, so it's right at the top, and it looks like it's the top of the tent. The jurisdiction, although the current form of the jurisdiction is only 2 years old, but it is a merger of 2 offshore jurisdictions that go back about 10 years. So we've been around a long time. This is not a very new jurisdiction. In fact, over the years we have accumulated about 30,000 companies. And interestingly enough, a diverse group of shareholders, UBOs, etc. Number 1 is India, but 10 nationalities make up 50% of all of the shareholders. And from that I can see it's half European, half regional. What's interesting there is the lack of Far East, China, Hong Kong, etc., which is where we're really focused today, because we see a big opportunity to take a lot of business away from BVI, which is naturally where a lot of the Far East business has gone. And I have a different presentation, which is literally BVI, ICC, and why we tick way more boxes than BVI, particularly for businesses coming to this part of the world from China and the Far East. So as a registry, we don't work directly with clients. We work through registered agents. And our registered agents are a mix of, frankly, the who's who in this industry. So global corporate service providers, global law firms, the accounting firms, and of course, service providers who are from Mauritius, who are now partners, like Capital Horizons. We think there's a great opportunity to expand our presence because the whole world of offshore is changing very fast. And clients want credible jurisdictions that will withstand all the pressures that are happening. And that's why we're beginning to see a lot of demand for RAC ICC. I'll talk about redomiciliations and so on later, because that's where I see a big opportunity, and again, it is a win-win for Mauritius and the UAE. I don't want to talk for 2 hours, so I'm going to quickly run through these things, but quick introduction. So you may ask, so what's different? Why RAC ICC? A lot of what we have is very similar to other jurisdictions, but there are a number of differentiators also that make RAC ICC more attractive. So from a corporate features perspective, 100% foreign ownership, 1 day incorporation, no restrictions on shareholders, corporate directors permitted, no office requirement, etc., etc. Very similar to a number of other jurisdictions. When you look at the legal features, it becomes actually more interesting. So, common law regulations with access to the DIFC and ADGM courts. That may not mean anything for some people, but for some it may mean a lot. So of course, any jurisdiction you go into, rule of law is extremely important. And in this case, to comfort a number of shareholders, investors, players, we have agreements with the DIFC and the ADGM who have separate courts, and where you can elect to have your agreements subject to those courts. And that's proved to be very popular. In fact, 70% of all new incorporations, they have signed up to mainly the DIFC courts. We'll talk about a variety of legal structures and so on. There's no restriction on capital repatriation. Migration, redomiciliations, very important, and we'll talk about that. Different classes of shares and the ability to register the share pledges is a very important one. Some jurisdictions don't have them. Within the UAE, a lot of the registries also don't have them, so that's proved to be extremely attractive. And the other features Double taxation treaties, and I know taxation is becoming kind of a bad name, but they are important. Whether EU, OECD, whoever likes it or not, it is important. At the end of the day, the lawyers, the tax advisors, the accountants want to put their clients in the most efficient capital structures, in the most efficient tax structures. It doesn't mean they're doing something wrong. So having access to those double taxation treaties, having access to bilateral treaties is very important. And we have, the UAE has more of those than any other country in the world, believe it or not. Something that not many people know, but that is a fact. Ability to open bank accounts is very important. And of course, the currency is pegged to the dollar and freely transferable. Quick look at what's available and how typically our structures have been used. So, the usual, companies limited by shares, unlimited companies, companies limited by guarantee, segregated portfolio companies, restricted purpose companies, typically used as holding companies in SPVs or sometimes as joint ventures. IP holding companies, very important. Trading and invoicing, very popular. We're seeing more family office structures and more uses in fund structures, although the fund might be regulated in another jurisdiction, but the vehicles under it are RAC ICC. Ability to transfer, re-domicile, ability to register a will. So sometimes people are concerned, okay, you're in the UAE, something happens, you get caught in Sharia law. Actually, no, it doesn't have to be. We can register a will for you, and it's with the DIFC, and it is applicable in the DIFC courts according to your will. You don't get caught in Sharia law. I want to focus a little bit on one of the products because I think it's a relevant one and it's proving to be extremely attractive. So as we all have been hearing about substance, one of the products that we introduced effectively gives you a RAC ICC holding company, so that's an offshore vehicle, with a RACIS, which is a sister company subsidiary, which is a free zone, and that then gives you the offices, visa. By having residence, you then can avail the double taxation treaties, the bilateral treaties, etc., etc. So it's proving to be very popular. Also because the one big attraction about the UAE is if we talk about substance again, and it's something that I think is very attractive about Mauritius too, and compare that to BVI. So if really they had to go and apply substance in BVI, a little island with 50,000 people and 400,000 registered companies, you tell me how are they going to do it? Absolutely impossible. Yeah. Whereas Mauritius has a very strong ecosystem of advisors, from the accountants to the lawyers to the corporate service providers, everything required. Same in Dubai and RAC, same in the UAE. So it's much easier for us to do it. We have everything required to satisfy the substance requirements. But what makes it more attractive for RAC is that, as you saw, we're only 45 minutes away from Dubai. We have the access and the advantages that Dubai offers, but at half the cost of doing business. So you tick all the boxes and you can do it at half the cost. So this is proving to be very attractive. So the benefits, as I've already said, you're an enterprise of substance. It's easier, by the way, to also open bank accounts because you have a physical office, residence, visas, etc. Avail the double taxation treaties, and so on. I'm not going to go through the rest of these structures in detail, but effectively there are many ways and many different structures that can be, where RAC ICC as a registry can be used. So SPVs and very often used as asset holding, securitizations, ring fencing, and so on. Private client solutions, again, you do not need to be in an expensive jurisdiction that's regulated to have structures like this. And I can tell you from personal experience where it's costing me a lot of money, and now I'm moving everything. And mine is in Canada, it goes back 15 years. You don't have to. You can be in more cost-effective jurisdictions. Segregated portfolio companies, very effective, work very well. So, as I say, we have a lot of details here. I do not want to bore you with all these details. But passive holding companies, very attractive. Probably 50% of our companies are passive holding companies where structures created to hold either shares or real estate in various jurisdictions, whether you're in the UAE or outside. Active holding companies will become more popular as people start to use the premium product structure. And once you've got the premium product structure, you then have a very effective vehicle to go into the rest of the GCC, to go into Saudi Arabia, to go into the rest of the Arab world, to go into India, in fact. And here are many examples of active holding structures that we've looked at, that we know work. Here's a very long list of double taxation treaties. So as I say, we've got 210 tax agreements, which include 123 double taxation and 87 protect and promote investments or bilateral agreements. We've also shown a summary of standard corporate tax rates, and as you know, the UAE has no tax. So in almost all cases, when you do a comparison, we are going to come out more effective than any other jurisdiction. On the bilateral investments, I love to pick on BVI, so we have all of those yes, 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 yes. Mauritius has all those yes, 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 yes. BVI has none. That's the rest of it. Redoms. So this is where I think one, RAC ICC has a huge opportunity because it's a strong jurisdiction that's credible, but also where I think there's a great win-win opportunity with Mauritius, where Mauritius has already taken the decision to phase out GBC2. A lot of you have clients who are kind of stuck, and it would make sense to keep those clients, to keep the income from those clients, actually to keep the clients happy and give them a solution whereby you can still have the relationship but can migrate them to RAC ICC. We know that the traditional offshore jurisdictions are coming under a lot of pressure. I was in China last week, and I think in 8 of the 9 meetings, the corporate service providers were telling me our clients are asking us to find them an alternative to BVI. And maybe there's nothing wrong with BVI, but perception is reality. So now in people's mind, there's some issue with BVI. Substance, of course, is a big factor in that. And so we're very happy to step forward. And we've actually done a study of just BVI and RAC ICC, and it works very well. So because of those pressures, there is an opportunity to encourage redomiciliations. We're taking steps also to move to what I would call midshore, rather than being pure offshore. I think pure offshore is history. You cannot just be a pure offshore jurisdiction. All the pressure is on all of us to move more towards what I would call midshore. There is, of course, still a need for some of the vehicles that Sham described. It does not mean, you see, the problem is it all started with Panama Papers and Paradise Papers and so on. And suddenly everybody discovered the rich and famous are hiding assets or avoiding taxation, etc., etc. But what is that? 0.1% of a million offshore vehicles? But of course the press got hold of it and made a big story of it. And why would they not? That's what the press do. So that's put all the pressure on offshore. And so we have to react to that. We have to raise the bar. We have to show that we're compliant. But it doesn't mean that offshore vehicles per se, which are no more than legal structures, doesn't mean that they're dead. We have to get the balance right. As I say, clients are now putting pressure on the corporate service providers, on their advisors, to put them in quality jurisdictions. And this is why we believe redomiciliation, rather than closing a company down, the cost of closing it down, losing the bank account, etc., all of the relationships, all of the history. Why would we want to do that if you can actually move a company to another jurisdiction, keep the history, keep the bank account, keep the relationships, etc., And that's where we're seeing a lot of interest. We've listed here some of the advantages, which I think are pretty clear. We've even listed the requirements, so we've got a simple process that can be followed to redom companies from other jurisdictions. In some cases, it's taken less than a week. And I've listed here some of the jurisdictions which just since the start of this year, we've seen migrate to RAC ICC. BVI, Cyprus, Mauritius, Panama, and the Bahamas. So it's beginning to happen, and to me it feels like a snowball effect. When the UAE was blacklisted 2 weeks ago, I did get some phone calls that were like, okay, so what happens now? Is this bad news? You know, that trip, again, I have to refer to that trip in China. 8 of the 9 meetings, nobody even mentioned the blacklist. Nobody mentioned it. Nobody cares. The one meeting where it was mentioned was because they were all lawyers. It was with the law firm. And I took them through the list of what the UAE is doing, and they got very comfortable with everything that we're doing, and that this is shorter. Then in the meantime, those redomiciliations continue to happen. So to summarize, you know, we're a well-established corporate registry based in a very reputable jurisdiction, independent courts with common law judges, the ability to register DIFC wills, the largest double taxation treaty network and bilateral network, and actually 3 weeks ago there was a 3-year extension which was signed with the OECD. We're moving to becoming more and more mature, introducing products of substance through the premium product, which adds to the advantages of using the jurisdiction. It's a simple registration process, but with simple but strict as to compliance. We're moving more towards residency options, of course zero tax, and the ability to open bank accounts, not just in the UAE, but internationally. I mean, talking about win-win, the relationship with Bank One and other banks in Mauritius has been extremely successful, extremely strong. So a lot of RAC ICC clients are actually using Bank One and other banks in Mauritius to open bank accounts. And it's, again, proved to be a very, very strong and win-win relationship. So I know I've bored you with a lot of information there. So I'll stop, and if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to try and answer a couple of questions. I think you got bored of my voice. Any questions? All clear? Must be.
What this, your presence in Mauritius will bring to the sector, this finance sector in Mauritius?
To the finance sector?
Yeah.
So, in the UAE, we have a mix of onshore, free zones, offshore, and financial free zones. So DIFC, where I was on the board for 12 years, I was in fact involved when the date was created, ADGM, and so on. RAC ICC is not a financial registry, but I think the relationships that we're creating, whether it's with the banks, whether it's with the advisors, whether it's with the corporate service providers, has a positive effect on the economy and on the financial sector. And it works both ways. So this is where we feel we're adding value, because the alternative is, if we take GBC2 companies to say, okay, it's being phased out, close them down, that's a negative. That's a lose-lose for everybody, including clients who have been here with structures in Mauritius for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. So that's where I feel we add value.
Maybe I'll add on to that, Dr. Samir, if I may just very quickly just add on to that, because it's a very interesting point, and it's important that we take note of this, is if a GBL2 company, for instance, is closing down, and statistics are official, BFSC publishes bulletins around this, so this is publicly available information, you find out that since over a year now, when changes were made to a finance bill, there has been a drain of GBL2 companies from Mauritius, and a lot of them are either closing down, going to Seychelles, or going to a number of jurisdictions. Now, when they close down, what does this mean for Mauritius and for the Mauritian economy as a whole? It means that those people are, number one, no longer using Mauritian service providers. They're going to Seychelles, they're going to Europe, they're going to BVI, it seems a favorite here, and other places. So that money is no longer being captured by local service providers and is going away from our economy. So this is just from the corporate services aspects of things, that those people also transact, carry out business, etc. So very often what will happen is they will close down their bank accounts as well, and they will open their bank accounts in the BVI, in Isle of Man, in other jurisdictions as well. So in terms of the total economy, the size of the financial services industry with the GBL2s going, and it used to represent roughly about half. There's the statistics, we can send it out to the press or to whoever might be interested in knowing. Roughly half, but if we're losing that, then this is so much money that is going away from the economy. And there's a lot of GBL2s that are also active traders and that hold substantial assets. It's not just for GBL1s, but important companies or very important assets. So with the RAC ICC, how this can blend in is if tomorrow those companies are migrated, re-domiciled to this new jurisdiction, because the banks and the banking relationship, well, it is authorized, it's important, because we are sure that a lot of things sometimes in our industry, it's good that the public at large also knows it, is the RAC ICC authorizes the RAC ICC company, or RAC's company, or any company that is part of their registry, to have a bank account in another jurisdiction. So number one is they can still keep their bank account in Mauritius. The service providers that offer corporate directorships, secretarial, administrative, accounting services can still offer it. And because they have common law under the ADGM or the DIFC, it also means that certain contracts, etc., can keep on being drafted from Mauritius. So by having now a jurisdiction that is complementing our service offering, what we are doing is we are preventing almost a net drain to the economy through the changes that the Finance Act 2018 has brought in. That was just a little add-on maybe, and a little clarification that might be helpful. So I don't know, Dr. Samir, maybe there's some other questions, or maybe
Any other questions? No, everybody wants to go have a drink. Okay, well thank you everybody. If anybody has any questions, I leave some cards. You can always drop me an email.
I'd be able to use the microphone because I've got a fairly powerful voice. Well, I hope so. Can you hear me in the back? Next slide.
I'm going to go sit over there so I can hear you better.
As an introduction, we've heard a lot about finance. That, and a very interesting factor that I went through the attendees list when Sean asked me to come and share some information with you. And over the last couple of months, I've been very, very fortunate to have various high-level discussions with a lot of organizations and also government organizations. And I want to share a bit with you because I believe, and it is my understanding, that not all C-level and board members have a real good understanding about security. And I've had these discussions with various CEOs of organizations and very large organizations and asked them the question is, how good is your security? They say our security is very good. We have firewalls and we have antivirus. If you believe that you've got firewalls and antivirus and you're secure, you're wrong. You need to rethink that, and that's why I call the title time for a radical rethink. So to give you an overview of what's this guy going to tell us and where does he get all this information? The organization that I work for, NEC, is Global Information, and we have various cyber defense operation centers, commonly also known as security operating centers for a normal IT organization. There's a big difference. There is a difference between a security operating center, which organizations run, and many banking facilities and large organizations have such as centers within their infrastructure. The difference is a cyber defense operations center sees the tsunami coming when it's a ripple in the sea, kilometers away. It detects it. A security operating center will detect it when it's almost upon the border. So there is a difference. The other difference is with a cyber defense operations center is the intelligent feeds that it does and the machine learning in the back end that can start profiling the methodologies used by hackers. Hackers follow money. Hackers follow money. Unless you're from Iran or Russia or China, then you're after government. And as I go through the presentation, I'm going to explain a couple of methodologies used and dangers, because we don't always think about it. Because we don't have the visibility of it in real time. So our footprint is, we have this footprint that's fairly big. There are a lot of, so we have one in Mauritius. Unfortunately, we don't have one in UAE yet. So it will give us a good footprint. So we have one in Japan, we've got Australia, we've got Singapore, we've got one in South Africa, which looks after the larger part of Africa, Brazil, Vienna, one in the States. We are busy deploying these extra ones, and it'll give us a total of 17 cyber centers that can actually monitor the threat landscape across multiple industries and devices. There are a lot of stars not shown there because the company NEC is a strategic partner for international law enforcement. And I may not mention the name, but it's an international law enforcement. We provide them threat intelligence, and we also built their cyber defense operations center. Next slide, please. So these are the predictions, and these predictions, the top 10 predictions, I'm not going to go through every single one, comes out of various sources. So this is a Gartner report, this is a PwC, a Ernst & Young, and global leading organizations that got together and they did surveys on what the threat landscape looked like in 2017, 2018, and they made these predictions. We, via all the cyber defense operation centers across the globe, have been analyzing this. So we also have our predictions. Those top 10 predictions are very, very close. Now, as I go through one or two of them, I'm not going to go through all 10. We don't have much time, because I can see some people are sitting in the back there, dropping. So let's have a look at these. I'm going to share some very, very real cases with you. So everybody's been talking about GDPR, protection of data and that. In the dark web, does anybody know what the dark web is? Everybody understand dark web? For those that don't understand dark web is an unstructured Google, if you want to put it that way, where cyber criminals share information. Sometimes bitcoins flow, sometimes you give me some information and I'll give you some information. The value of a person's identity sells for $15.70 in the dark web. A full credit card information with all the details you can actually buy with it until they stop the card is only at $6.35. A couple of years ago it was opposite. So when we start having a GDPR is a protection of our information. The liability for a breach in GDPR, and I'm going to show you some well-known breaches that took place. The CEO of the organization is personally liable in terms of fine. The fines are based on the company's revenue profit, and a portion of that is your fine, your penalties. It's big money. The last report I had a look at is only 83% of large listed organizations are GDPR compliant. They can demonstrate that they're busy with it, but they're not compliant yet. So that's one that you need to have a look at. Number 3 is one that is the password will always be the problem. The person. 48% of breaches is internal breaches by employees that either share passwords or weak passwords. All the financial banking breaches that we've had in Mauritius, we've had some vicious ones over the last couple of months, and not only Mauritius. Kenya, everybody's having breaches. The banks don't always say that. You will never get a bank to say, listen guys, we've just lost $40 million US. Never say that. Reputational damage. Done inside our employee. Using somebody else's credentials. This is particularly government. I'll give you a good example. The 15th of December 2015, Turkey shot down a Russian plane entering the airspace. The Russians didn't retaliate with the bullets. They launched a denial of service attack and took out the whole infrastructure, internet infrastructure. Nobody could transact. They took them out electronically. I don't know if I say fortunate or unfortunate. I spent some time in Kenya and I also spent some time in Zimbabwe recently. Kenya was the bombing, and Zimbabwe was the violence that erupted because of the price of petrol that went up. 4 people hurt, 1 person killed. We did an internal investigation for them, so there's methodologies that we use, and one of them is the social media activity. You put a geographical ring around a country or an area, we capture everything on social media. So be careful what you're saying. If anybody here in this room has used Instagram, Twitter, or any other social media except WhatsApp tonight, I guarantee you tomorrow morning I'm going to show you what you've been saying. So we use this information. The problem is that in Zimbabwe wanted to protect their reputational. So what did they do? They went and switched off the internet. Switch the internet off. I couldn't communicate with anybody. I could still send an SMS. Until they decided, well, they blocked all external SMSs going out of the country. They blocked it. So what they did is, They said, well, let's switch the internet off like the DLC has done before. The total loss of revenue was $203 million US, and Zimbabwe needs money. Wrong decision. Financial impacts. The other one of interest. So malware challenges. Malware challenges is not actually just antivirus. Antivirus is something almost gone. The industry trends is people won't even have antivirus on their machines anymore. They're so fast. The new trends is malware. Malware, which is an object-based, it doesn't have a signature. You can't see it, you can't smell it, no technology can pick it up. It comes in various forms, and what does it do? It encrypts your hard drive. And it asks you, can you please give me some money? So we've got a very large client in Mauritius that lost, 14? Well, they got a 14 million ransom demand to pay 14 million to get the data back. The other largest one at the sea level is sextortion. So what sextortion is you will get an email to say that I've cracked your password, and I see you've been visiting some sites, and I see you've got some nice pictures as well. If you don't give me a donation of $6,000 US, I'm going to take all this information and put it on social media so all your friends and family can see the naked pictures. That's extortion. The other most dangerous one, and we've seen, and I've got a special slide for it, so maybe I should keep that until the next slide. Next slide, please. These were the very, very largest data breaches in terms of financial loss and reputational damage. Now, I mean, everybody can remember Sony, Boeing. Now, if you see Boeing something, okay, Sheldon we know about, they lost a lot of classified information, but these have got massive financial impact. The shares drop just like this. There's big, big financial losses just with that. Over and above the reputational damage, some of these companies are battling to come back into the industry because people have lost trust in them. Next slide. So this one here is the CEO fraud impact. This is one of the most dangerous ones that we've been detecting over the last couple of months. You in the finance department or accounts department, and you get an email from your CEO to say, listen, now you need to pay this amount of money into this new account number, and it's urgent. You in the accounts department, CEO, okay, I'll do it straight away. It happens. It's happening as we talk. So that is called whaling. It's not a phishing attack, it's whaling. It's where I start gathering as much information about your organization, who's in the accounts department, who can authorize payment. What I do is I spoof them out. So I can send you an email from Sean tonight. You'll think it's coming from him. In the meantime, it's not coming from him. You would think it's coming from him. So if you don't understand, and normally when the CEO gives you instruction, you don't even follow the procedure. You just make sure I'm paying in that money and I'm getting it done. Next slide, please. This is a very interesting one, and I'd like to spend a little bit more time on this. Is the Internet of Stuff. So the Internet of Stuff, people are forgetting about it. By 2020, we're going to have 28 billion Internet of Things devices that outgrowing any other technology. Now, Internet of Things can be anything. It can be a fridge, be a Sony television. That's the Internet of Things. I'm going to give you two nice stories. The largest denial of service attack that took place in 2015. Now, denial of service attack, just to give you what it is. It's like you're traveling on a 4-lane freeway. Traffic's flying 100 kilometers out, it's happy, 4 lanes, peak hour. All of a sudden, somebody just goes and blocks all 3 lanes and there's only 1 lane up. So, but all this traffic diverted into one area. So what does it do? and I only do it for 17 minutes. The backlog of the traffic that will still catch up is back to back. It takes hours to clear that. So that's basically, in simple terms, a denial of service. So with the denial of service, what they did is in 2015, they accessed CCTV cameras, surveillance cameras. They accessed all these cameras and then they launched a denial of service attack using cameras. They're not very intelligent cameras, but they could be accessed, no security. Another very good one is the 27th of July last year, 2018. They hacked the water well sensors that measures the depth of the water and the lift of the water and the drop of the water sensors in Kenya. They use those water well sensors. Remember, these aren't human beings, eh? Basically, it's a tube like this. And launched a denial of service attack. So that's Internet of Things. Now, this is an interesting one here, and these are scary ones. Air travel. So air travel, can we hack a plane? Can anybody hack a plane? So there's somebody flying tonight. I don't like him too much because I owe them a couple of billion. So what do? I don't even have to buy a ticket or pay somebody to take the plane down. Just attack the GPS. The plane doesn't know where it's going. All Russian airplane fighters have got no digital instrumentation. They've still got like a compass that we know. All analog. Motor cars. So we know about, I don't know if you remember, in 2015 they hacked a Jeep Cherokee. Took total control of that motor car. Disabled the brakes and put the accelerator down. Disabled the steering. Yeah. Outside a hotel at the Innocent, they've got all these brand new BMWs. The hybrid ones, I like it. Actually, you should see this one, I really like. This is the i3. Little back doors open up like this, very nice. Electronics, I was looking at this thing, I said to myself, if I was younger, I would buy one of these. Because the doors open like this, it's nice going to the cinema, sitting with somebody next to you. This is nice. So it's comfortable car. Next slide, please. How many sensors an intelligent motor car's got that probably I could get into it if I need to. And I'm not such a good hacker anymore. But I can help myself when I have to. So what they did with the Cherokee, they use this. This is the ECU. It's the brain of the motor car. Some motor cars are very intelligent. I saw a very nice one pulling here this afternoon. It's a BMW like limousine. It measures the sensors in the car. If the car's getting too hot or something's not right, it sends a signal to your control room. Get a message on your screen. Say, take your car to the closest servicing. That's how intelligent these things are. They are very, very intelligent. So, motor cars are just one incident. Next one. I'm going to skip this one. I've only got three more slides, and I promise you I'm going to be finished in a minute. So because our audience is here, and we heard about Emirates doing this for the country, we've heard about how good Dubai is growing. One of the fastest growing cities, you can see it. You must, every time I go there, it's having in the same place. Things change so fast. Very effective. And I travel to Tokyo a lot. Just as efficient. People are friendly, buildings are going up. It's wealth. What did I say in the beginning? Hackers follow money. They follow money. So what I did is this morning, while I was putting my presentation through this morning, I said, you know what I'm going to share with these people? I'm showing this big globe, I'm showing our footprint, I'm showing you what type of intelligence I'm getting. Where did this guy Google all this stuff? He didn't. This is true stats. So what I said, okay, well let's go and have a look at how the United Emirates is doing. Firstly is at the moment as we talk, they have 406 vulnerable websites. A vulnerable website means that any normal hacker would be able to attack that website. Probably get access into the backend. Phishing websites. Phishing websites is we get lured and get challenged to provide credentials. So you put in your credentials. Now they've got your credentials, then they're going to use the credentials. Malware, it's when you visit that website, you're going to get infected. 19 websites hacked. Wow, let's see the next slide. These are the websites that have been hacked over the last 30 days. Now, I don't know these companies. Maybe somebody from Dubai will be able to recognize these organizations. And if I have a look at those organizations, I can see 3 or 4 quickly. Just by judging by the name, they've got people information. Recruitment agents have got information. Because you start putting your CV. There's quite a few of those organizations that's maintaining people information. And may I have the last slide please before I leave? Thank you. So I couldn't leave Mauritius out. I had to do Mauritius as well. I mean, you can't just pick on one country, not the other country. Now, if you go back, you don't have to go back. You see the number 138. UAE was 65. UAE 65 means it's the 65th most hacked country in the world. So Mauritius sits on 138. Now that number changes. It can change weekly, it can change monthly. So 138 hacked country. So the top countries, as a matter of interest for yourselves, are not part of this. The top countries in the world, hack countries and hacker companies. United States of America, China, one would expect. They're the big players that got massive bandwidth. And in Africa, who's Africa? Okay, I'll help you out. South Africa's third. South Africa's third. Anybody else want to take a guess for second? Going. You might win the prize. We've got 3 prizes we're going to give away tonight. We're going to give you a free penetration test, a vulnerability assessment. No, we are. Serious, we're going to have a lucky draw. And we will do a benchmark. We will do a benchmark GDPR for your organization. If you pull out your card. So I hope you all put your cards in there. But I might add something for nothing. If somebody wants to tell me who's the second one in Africa, I might extend the prizes. Anybody want to take a guess? Everybody thinks Nigeria, because Nigeria has got the largest internet population in the whole of Africa. They're not number 2. Kenya. Kenya is number 2, and they are also got the most advanced hackers in Africa. Kenya. And who do they attack? Kenya and Nigeria, they don't like each other. So there's a little country, which I don't want to go to, it's called the Central Africa country. It sits right next to the DRC. They are bad. So they are number 2. But thank you very much for your time. I've taken up a lot of your time, and I hope you learned something that you didn't know about the dangers. Much more worse than you think. And I'd also like to say, because I've been spending some time sitting in the back there playing around, and I get bored quickly, I would suggest that some of you put antivirus on your Android phones, because I saw there's quite a few phones that aren't safe. So I would recommend, if you don't have any antivirus on your Androids, is to go and get yourself antivirus. It's quite cheap. You can maybe get a freebie, but be careful of freebies. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll meet you outside later. I have got a last surprise for you. I've overstepped my time. We have set up a television monitor in the open area there. I believe it's very close to the pub, where we're going to be showing you You're welcome to just walk in and have a look at it. We'll be showing you the global threat intelligence, and it's real time. It's connected into our cloud, and it's pulling down information of the global real-time threat intelligence. And you can watch the clock, it's real stuff. Thank you very much.